Molweni Africa Jumbo. Today we're going to deal with South African politics and law. We have seen that most of the time politics and law sometimes come to a crossroads. Some people will use politics to decide cases, which I think is very wrong. Law has got nothing to do with politics. If you are a politician, then you must be going to your political party, your legislature, and make laws. But you cannot politic and then use the same politics to interpret law, because you're going to make a very big mistake. Let us deal with the first subject, that is the case against the case which was lodged by the Correctional Services, where they are refuting the fact that the release of the former president Jacob Zuma was incorrect. Right. The problem with that case is that the former president Zuma is being victimized at all fronts. Now, I don't know how would any court blame a prisoner, because if you're a prisoner in South Africa, that means you are under the control of a certain institution, which is Correctional Service in this case. You cannot do anything without asking for permission from your captors. You are being kept in prison, and here you are now being blamed for having been released, because being released in jail is a prerogative of the Correctional Services. You cannot now say if anybody makes a mistake by releasing you and say, no, you must be readmitted to prison. It's unfair. Especially, it's actually violating the rights of a prisoner. So I think it is okay for the Constitutional Court to make that pronouncement, but they do not have the powers to action it, because they've made that pronouncement to say it was wrong, it was unconstitutional, and that is an instruction that is given to the Correctional Services, that they need to be careful in future that they don't release prisoners if there's been a recommendation that the prisoner is critical ill or is on his last days, because the reason why Jacob Zuma was released, it is because the medical report said he needs to be released on medical parole. People who are released on medical parole are people who are critical ill, and the Correctional Service sees that their days are numbered. So in order for them to experience a decent death, they should be with their relatives. So that is the essence of medical parole. Otherwise, South African prisons are very decent. They have hospital, they have the best of medicine. So there is no other. You can't say because I've got a headache, then I must be released in prison. You can't say because I've got TB, I must be released in prison, because there are qualified doctors and nurses in prison. So this thing of the president being released on medical parole and it becomes his fault is neither here nor there. It will be so unfortunate and very unfair that people who are learned will keep quiet and not intervene if Jacob Zuma ultimately is taken back to prison. Because if you are out on medical parole, that does not mean that your sentence is finished. Being out on medical parole, that means you are still in prison. Prison officials, that is now probation officers, have a duty to go and visit you and make sure that you sign papers to show that you are at home, because you are still in prison. It could be described as house arrest. That means you are being detained in your own home, because you are not allowed to go and be seen addressing public gatherings or getting involved, or even going to a funeral. We've seen that the former president has not been seen in public for quite some time after this debacle about his being released on parole. He has not been seen in public. Nobody can claim that we've seen we were with him in a party, because he is still up to this day. He's still under medical parole. What happened was, when he finished his 15 months, I meant to say 15 months in prison, then it was only then that he was allowed to move around, to go to a Sanko meeting. As it is now, we hear that he is in Russia for medical residence. So, because the 15-month has elapsed, so there's nothing wrong with him now traveling. So it will be very wrong for anybody to blame. The truth is that the commissioner of the Correctional Service is the one that has to take blame for any blunder that happened during the incarceration of Jacob Zuma. So they should leave Zuma alone, because seriously, he has got nothing to do with this. He was out on parole, and he was in a home arrest, if you like, under parole. Probation officers visited him to go and sign and to see if he was respecting all the laws that govern the parole conditions. So why must he be chastised now because of the ego? Because now this seems like an ego from someone who wants to show Zuma that who is boss. So I think we should leave him alone based on that. If there's anybody who has to be taken to prison, that must be Arthur Fraser. That's all. That is the truth, and nobody else. Or the people who said Zuma was gravely ill and he was eligible for medical parole. Those are the people that work in that system, correctional service system, that need to be taken to task. And hands off Msholozi. He has done a lot. In fact, I become very subjective when dealing with Msholozi, because Msholozi is the same guy who went to prison in the 60s. He was sentenced to 10 years for associating himself with the ANC. He was sentenced to 10 years. Why can't we say whatever crime Msholozi has committed, he has already served his time at the Robben Island? So let us leave him alone. Right, now let us come to another topic. Right, this topic is about the Constitutional Court's decision on whether the suspension of the public protector was lawful or unlawful. Okay, whoever was contesting this suspension was saying Mkhwebane was suspended because she had instituted investigations for the Phala fiasco. First of all, let us put the Phala matter into context. Here we have a situation where South Africans are told that there was a break-in at Phala, and there was money that was stolen. That money is alleged to have been in the amount of about 580 thousand US dollars, which is a lot of money, right? Now, whoever says what, of course, it is common cause that that farm belongs to the president, and the president has got people who are running the farm. One of them is a name called Ngobo, and the other guy, and some other people who are running the farm. So the president is not running the farm. But the president cannot disassociate himself totally with the farm, at least because he owns it. It's just that because he has a duty to run the country as well. So he cannot be full-time or running the farm full-time. But he would want to know if anything happens. Obviously, he will ask his friends or anybody to go and verify. Although there is no evidence that the president used state resources in order to sort out whatever happened at Palapala. So if anybody says Rode was told to go and have a look at Palapala, then that person must also produce the evidence that this is the vehicle that Rode used, and this is the time and date when Rode was supposed to be at work in the presidency, guarding the interest of the presidency. And then he directed his duties and went and did work at Palapala. Then we can talk. But without that, there is nothing wrong that the president has done. Secondly, it is alleged that there was that amount of dollars that was stolen. And the people are saying it was in a cushion, in a sofa. All right. But there's also evidence that that sofa was actually next door, because there was a break-in next door, not at Palapala. The footage that was given to the public protector was a footage from next door, not from Palapala. So if we are saying, based on the footage that is in the public domain, the president has to answer, then that analogy is wrong, because there was no footage at Palapala. Although there are allegations of break-ins, but there was no footage to support that. The only footage that was given to the public was the one which happened next door, and the public protector has gone out of her way to go and investigate and find out that that is the truth. So we do not know, we do not have the physical evidence of dollars, because once we want to implicate anybody or to accuse anybody, then we must have the actual dollars to say, here are the dollars that we're talking about. But there are no dollars. There's just here. So if somebody says, hey, I gave Nelson Mandela 200 million and he put it in a sofa, then we must chastise Mandela for somebody who just claims that he gave money to Mandela without proving, okay, where is the money? We could have proven the money by going to Cape Town, where there are allegations that one of the thieves at Palapala went and bought a bakkie, a Ford Ranger from Barron's. And I'm wondering, why would you go and buy a Ford Ranger from Barron's? Because Barron's is supposed to be a VW vehicle dealer. But anyway, I know there has been changes that VW is now merging with Ford to build the Amarok. So we can take that. But now, why don't we go to the dealers at Barron's to find out what currency did the people who came to buy the bakkie from them, what currency did they use? Because if we don't get because we want to see the dollars, we want to know, we want to trace the dollars. And also, there has been a talk that there was a receipt where this guy from Saudi Arabia paid. But we have never seen that receipt. We've never seen the book. No receipt was ever shown to the media. It's just hearsay. And also, there is a talk of animals that were bought. But those animals, there is no record of those animals having been transferred from South Africa to Saudi Arabia. So it's just hearsay and hearsay and hearsay. So we cannot chastise our president because somebody says, hey, I think there was a sale at Palapala. Of course, there would be a sale at Palapala. But let us have proof and see that the money actually went into the president's account. Then we'll know that the president is busy um, doing his private business while we don't have electricity. So I think we should stop it right there. This thing about Pala and the president, to me, it does not make sense at all, because it's just blowing hot air. There is no concrete evidence. There are no dollars. Where are the dollars now? Where is the receipt? Where are the animals? Where were they sold? Were they really sold? But what are we talking about if there was no sale? That is the problem that we are having now as South Africans. So we need to think. The other one is, we were talking about the Mkhwebane judgment. I think, and I'm sure that the Constitutional Court was on point, unlike what it did in the case of Jacob Zuma, blaming him for having been released. But with the Mkhwebane case, the Constitutional Court was on point, because if you are saying the president was not supposed to suspend Mkhwebane has made a lot of blunders, and which have cost his office and herself monies, because he took irrational decisions that were challenged, and with all of them, she was found wanting. So you cannot then say blame the president for having suspended the public protector, because even if he suspended her, the other public protector continued. Suspension did not stop the suspension did not stop the probe, and those people who were probing the president were actually people who were chosen by Mkhwebane herself to say, because the deputy public protector did not go herself to Pala to do the investigation. She sent people who had already been given that task of going to investigate. Obviously, the president would have been investigated by people who work in that office. So the fact that people are saying, no, Kalega was wrong because he gave a whitewash report, that is neither here nor there, because it was not her who did the investigation. The people who went and did the investigation were there at that press conference, and they confirmed that they were the ones who did the investigation, and they were there to answer all the questions that were posed. So it is clear that the public protector was suspended in order to maintain the dignity and the image of that office. We cannot have somebody who has never been to court, because I don't think the appointment of Advocate Mkhwebane to be a public protector was done properly, because she seems not to be aware of what is going on in courts. There are no judgments where she was ever involved. I've tried to look in my Google and everywhere softly. I've never found anything that says this particular client was represented by Advocate Mkhwebane. So she has no experience of practice. And when you are a public protector, you must be somebody who knows what's going on in courts, somebody who can argue cases, who can, make analysis and make informed decisions. Otherwise, that office will be embarrassed. So South African politics are like that. They tend to mingle with law, and once that is done, there's going to be dire consequences. So, Jambo Africa.